So we have some guests on the show joining us right now, a little bit out of the ordinary for what we usually do. We usually get, basketball players, coaches, but we found these two guests that are going to join us. Very, very interesting. We obviously have a segment that a lot of you have become familiar with, and it's actually gaining traction. I get a lot of emails and DMs about, is this stat useful or useless? We have the boys from at StatMuse. They've joined us, and we have a number of topics to get through, but Eli Dawson, co-founder and CEO, and Kevin Bachtia, did I pronounce that right?
That's pretty close, Bogues.
Pretty close. How do I say it? Break it down for me.
Bachtia.
Bachtia.
Without the H. It's like there you go. There you go, mate.
And Kevin is head of creative and design. So we brought them on board to discuss a lot of things. I'm sure Pro will rail them a little bit along the way. But welcome to the show, guys. And just tell us a little bit about yourselves. Tell us outside of StatMuse, who you are and what you do, and we'll get to how you form StatMuse a little later.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. As Kevin said, first thing, thanks for having us. Kevin, I think you have like a very cool story here. So I don't know if you want to lead with it. Maybe your pre-StatMuse and joining StatMuse, and then I could join in there.
Okay. Well, so my background is actually in advertising. So I used to do advertising in New Zealand for about 9 years. Sort of as my side hustle, I would make this. I opened this Instagram page and I would post like NBA art on it. And Eli and the guys at StatMuse found out about that Instagram page and essentially offered me a full-time job and sponsored me a visa to go to the US. And that's how I work at StatMuse. That's a long story short version there.
Interesting. Eli?
We'll also at some point, Kevin, have to tell the David Stern writing your O1 visa rec letter there. So, or reference letter. So, and I think for names like Kevin, who just spoke, and I'm Eli, co-founder CEO. So yeah, I mean, my background before StatMuse, I actually worked in finance. There's no video right now, but people would laugh when they know that was my background. So I was an investment banker, and then I worked in private equity as a professional investor. And I left that, learned to code, and started StatMuse. Not that I do any of our engineering. That's for the real engineers. I just had a kind of a vision for the future of computing and humans talking to computers and getting content on demand. And that was kind of the basis of StatMuse that me and our co-founder Adam started.
And are you guys still? You guys full time at StatMuse, or you still have other jobs? I assume.
Oh no, so definitely full time at StatMuse. I guess for me it's been almost a little 7 years, I guess. And Kevin, how long for you now?
5 years plus.
Yeah. So I mean the StatMuse. I think what probably brought us here today most is our Twitter account, which is quite popular in NBA circles. But the website, the search engine, which is essentially a search for sports stats and information, and then now we do financial search too. So, search for stock prices, currency pairs, Bitcoin returns, all this stuff. What do we get, Kevin? Over 200 countries and website or countries and territories every week that come to the website. So the website at this stage is pretty big, and what keeps us busy most of the time.
Bogues, I got a bad feeling about this, man. I mean, they're talking about AI controlling people. I have a feeling these Terminator robots are coming our fucking way, and they're gonna give us Luka Doncic's PER before they curb stomp us to death on a global scale. So this is some dangerous shit I think we got going on here, Bogues. I'm just telling you.
Be nice then. Get in their good books.
Yeah. All right.
It's not as doom and gloom as that, bro. It's essentially Google for sports stats. So you type in any question you want in English and it spits out an answer for you immediately. It's just as simple as that. Rather than having to go to websites and having to click drop downs and stuff like that, it's as easy as asking a question, really. So it's nothing like the Skynet.
Yeah, that's what Sarah said before they fucking went after her. But that's what in the Terminator movies. But I'll let it slide and just say, you know what, fuck it. I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, I had no idea you boys did other stuff outside of the basketball stuff. I haven't looked too much into it, but we obviously follow you because of the basketball stuff. But that makes total sense that it's full time. I mean, how and why did you start, StatMuse?
Yeah, I guess I'll run with that one. So, for myself and co-founder Adam, well, first we were co-captains of our high school basketball team. So I'll note that StatMuse has had basketball and NBA love since day one. But we always had a vision that, this is the decade that humans start talking to computers. And you can go back to like 2012, you had Siri out, you had Wolfram Alpha, which was kind of this like vertical specific search engine. And kind of our vision was that like as sports fans, and then I, mentioned before I was an investor, like, the way the internet works is like, okay, I had a question, I need some information, I need some content. And you go to Google and you search it, and then maybe it takes you to Wikipedia, or maybe it takes you to the NBA.com. And it's, kind of like click through a bunch of blue links to find your answer. Whereas, once humans can really talk to machines, it's like, well, why can't the machine just like give me the answer I want, right? Which is this idea of like the future of search, every search result being a piece of content, right? And so you get content on demand. And then if you look at like our Twitter, like that's kind of this, I think this, great example of like once a human can talk to the machine, get all this content on demand, all this information on demand, someone like Kevin can go do some magic with his NBA knowledge and creative brain and a very powerful tool at his fingertips. So for us, it was like just that's really what it's about. It's about humans talking to computers. How can we do our part as sports fans to make it to where you can just talk to the machine and get the content on demand, right? So that's really what the core motivation was. And I think anytime you want to go out and build something, it's easier to build something where like you're like, I just want this thing to exist because I will use it, right? And that's always the greatest starting point. And that's what we do with sports. And then that's what we're kind of doing with finance now as well.
Gotcha. So Kevin, you run the basketball. That's all you?
Yep. That's all me. The illustrations are done by our graphic designer, Michael. The NBA StatMuse Twitter, that's all me.
How much time would you spend just on the basketball StatMuse or just StatMuse related to sports stuff daily, weekly? Give us an idea of how much research and time you have to put, because some of these stats you guys pull out are just absolutely ridiculous. Like some of them I saw you guys just did. I think you guys just did a LeBron hashtag per tweet, right, in his off season.
Well, that's prime off season content right there.
Yeah. So
I would say so. Interestingly, the Twitter stuff isn't really, I would say, my main responsibility as StatMuse, since I'm I'm in charge of everything creative and design. Like I work on like the website design and product design, copywriting, art directing. So essentially, I only have time to do Twitter when the games are on at night. And so I would say I spend maybe 3 to 4 hours a day just running the Twitter account and following the games and looking at box scores and researching stats. We only do 200 to 300 tweets a month. That's like, that's like below 10 tweets a day, which is not a lot. We're a pretty small team. So, we do the best we can.
Yeah, gotcha. Where are you getting how and where do you get your stats from? That's what we want to know. Like, what platforms are you using? Is a lot of it done just by your own? Like, I assume the hashtag one, you would have had to just spend a good 30 minutes.
Interns or
Yeah, do you have interns doing it? Yeah.
I wish we had interns. It's literally just me and my laptop. So I would say 95% of the stats that I come up with are available on statmuse.com. And it's as easy. Let's say, for example, right, LeBron has a 40-10-10 game, so a 40-point triple-double. And you want to know how many 40-point triple-doubles he has compared to the rest of, NBA history. You just type that in, like most players with a 40-point triple-double. You hit enter and it spits out an answer for you. Like it shows, LeBron has, let's say 20 and whatever, right? So it's pretty easy that way. But, for that other 5%, which is like the weird stuff, right? The hashtags per tweet, all of that stuff, I just had to do that manually.
Who's getting these stats though into your system that is spitting out when somebody asks for it? I was on there about an hour and a half today, just messing around with it in different sports and stuff. First of all, fantastic site, and I think it has room to grow. Yeah, it has room to grow, but it's great. Like shots and stuff. I wish when I worked for Kobe, and I would get shot charts for him for his opponents and stuff like that. I mean, this would have been great, but like, how do you enter that stuff in? I know you said that it just pops up, but like the actual raw data, like like Basketball Reference, I would assume that you guys are sort of competing with them. Oh, as far as like, I mean, I know you're a little bit different, but like, are you guys pulling your stats from the same place, or are they entering like are you entering like lines of data, like as far as like season stats, career stats, to get this ready to go when I ask how many 3-point shots did LeBron take in his career? Like, who's entering that data in?
Yeah, so I think kind of the best way to explain this, to the audience, and I'll assume people haven't hit the website yet, right? We'll start from there. Is that if you think about it, we really did a few things. So first, it's a search engine for sports stats and information. So we can answer literally trillions of sports questions like scores, schedules, stats, recaps, bios, betting, fantasy. We can do it, live during a game. How many threes does Steph have? How's LeBron doing? Like, you can answer any of that. Or you go back to the inaugural season, right? Ask like, how did Jackie Robinson do in his rookie season, right? And we can just instantly answer that, right? So within that kind of context, there's this natural language understanding engine, which is really about, you go to put, text into a search engine and you're ascribing meaning to it. So it's like, what's the lexical meaning? What's a triple double? Who's the king? What's gone yard? What's lit the lamp? Like what's the meaning of this language, right? And then we cultivate our own database, right? Or knowledge base. So unlike Google, we don't like try and go scrape someone else's website. We cultivate our own database so that once we understand the text, like what did you ask for, then we go and search this data. And there's, it's real-time stats, or it's all the way back to the inaugural season, and you're digitizing newspapers, and there's no real like fancy way around the fact of like how you get data. And then once we grab the data though, then we generate this, content answer, that is kind of this piece of multimedia where it's like, hey, there's text, there's chart, there's a data table, there's a amazing little illustration. And that's kind of our engine, right? So it's like, you can ask us this question, we'll ascribe meaning to it. We'll go grab the data. We cultivate the data ourselves, particularly if it's historical data, real-time data, you just like license the API. And then we grab that data object and kind of whatever endpoint you're on, whether it's like Alexa or Google Assistant or our website, we'll just kind of give you the best multimedia piece of answer you could get, for that endpoint.
I guess the question I'm looking for is similar to pros, but is someone, like for historical stats, I assume you can't use AI necessarily, right? So has someone actually entered this into a data point that you guys have backed up?
There you go.
Backed up somewhere? That's kind of, because that's a lot, like the fact that you can type in anything on that damn website and no, not damn website, great website, but you can type in anything and you're spitting out instant answers with statistics is just mind-boggling to me about how, have you had tech people within your company that have just constantly logging information? Is that, or is it just all AI?
There you go. That's what I was asking.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm smiling in here as you guys are seeing the power. So I'd break it down to like a few points. Like one, there is like data entry in the sense of like we have to go cultivate these databases that are like, what are all Bogues stats for his whole career,
yes.
right? Every game.
Yes.
And that's, that's like, yeah, that's where I said there's nothing sexy about it. Like it's manual data entry. You're scrubbing newspapers, all this stuff, right? But once you have this database, right, then you're, when you talk about AI, right, and it's awesome that Pro made this reference to, Skynet earlier, because that's like a daily part of how I talk about
Bogues. I'm telling you, this treacherous motherfucker. I'm telling you.
Well, what I would note is like, there's no Skynet around the corner that like anyone should be afraid of. Like, there's no what we call like, there's no AGI, like, artificial general intelligence, where it's like it can be creative and like it can go learn on its own. Google has this unsupervised learning with AlphaGo. That's kind of the most like sophisticated like machine teaching itself there is, and at the end of the day they're just playing the game like Go, right? So what I would tell people is like, is it 25 years, 50 years, 100 years? Like maybe it's not even our lifetime. It doesn't matter if we hit AGI, right? Like it doesn't matter if like there's any Skynet. If you look at StatMuse as a perfect example of what we consider like domain specific AI or vertical specific AI, where you can say, well, what if we just become like the smartest sports robot in the world, right? Or the smartest financial analyst in the world, that's a robot, right? Which is essentially what we set out to do. And so I think to your guys' core question, what I would note is that there is this like lexical engine, and that's this idea of like natural language understanding, where we're teaching the robot to understand human language. In particular, we're teaching it the kind of the world of sports and that lexicon, such that, you know, someone could go talk to essentially a robot, ask it anything about sports, whether it's like a live game recap or like some esoteric question from the inaugural season. And we want to be able to answer it, right? And that's kind of our dream. And that's like, if you think of like an ESPN, and in the past, and like, you know, Kevin, everyone on this podcast grew up with ESPN, right? ESPN, like the days of like, how do you serve like Knicks fans or Lakers fans exclusively are kind of like over. It's like, how do you scale like 3 hours for the Bucks fan who loves Giannis endlessly? And like, you're not going to do that with humans. You're going to do it with robots. And it's just the ability for humans to essentially drive their own content experience. And they might do that casually. Like, I'm a casual fan. I love Giannis. I just like want to ask a bunch of stuff about his MVP season or whatever, right? Or they might be like a professional gambler or a daily fantasy player, you know, some multimillionaire off of sports. And they're approaching this much more like a research investment platform where it's like, I'm trying to squeeze as much information out of this like sports robot as possible in the next 24 hours, right? So I think with that, like, hopefully that's like a better understanding, which is ultimately, I think, like the TLDR in your question is that we're not like manually answering specific questions. It is an engine that understands the lexicon of sports. It has all the data for the history of sports. And we're trying to build, you know, the greatest sports savant ever. That's essentially a robot.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's somewhat going over my head a little bit, just not so much going over my head, but just understanding of how powerful this technology is and where the world is today. So I know Pro's definitely struggling with it, because if I am, he's in all kinds of trouble. But
the fuck out of here, Bogues. You can barely walk and chew gum when it comes to technology. You still got a Commodore 64, you fucking prehistoric fuck.
It's a Super Nintendo, Pro. But yeah,
that just makes him an OG. That just makes him an OG.
Super Mario, Super Mario and Tetris. That's me. But yeah, it's just, I think for a lot of our listeners, it some of it would go over our listeners' heads, just being sports fans of like, holy shit, this is like deeper than I ever thought. And, you know, we make the joke about Skynet and whatnot, but it's just interesting where the world of technology has gone. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, it makes it much, I guess, much easier for you guys to have people get things real time. And that's what it's all about today, I guess. It's people want things now. They don't want to send you a question and hear about it in 10 minutes or an hour, and they want instant gratification. That's a society we've built, unfortunately, which is good and bad at times. But one thing I liked about you guys and your stats is there's a humorous mix in it. You know, we like shit talking, we like going at each other, Pro and I, and talking shit to people, and that's why I caught StatMuse more often than not, is because you guys don't take it too seriously. Like, you know, maybe you can get the reputation as stat nerds and no personality. That's usually the stigma or the stereotype. But I think you guys have a really, really good balance and mix. And just talk to us about, is that creative doing it together, or is it you just got one guy that's just a shit talker like Pro that's doing all your tweets that are humorous? But talk to us about the humorous side of your shit posting stats.
Yeah. So to answer that, you know, whether you like the personality or not, that's me. So good and bad, good or bad, that's on me. So again, like we're a pretty small team, and I essentially run the Twitter account, and we mostly just do NBA. And that was an intentional choice. We, like you put it perfectly, Bogues. You know, stats could be overwhelming and kind of boring, and there's just too much to look at. There's like, you know, PR and, you know, VORP and BPM, like people don't really know what these things are, right? And it could come across as like smartsy and geeky and whatever. But so we wanted to add personality to it. Like we wanted to add some fun to it. And that's the core of our product as well. Like if you go to our website, you know, you see illustrations, you see colors. It's not like a drop down and data tables only. And that was an intentional choice that we made for our Twitter account as well. Like the first thing that we did was, okay, let's, you know, hire someone who can make these awesome illustrations of these plays that we can use. And that's Michael, the guy that I mentioned before. And then after that, then, you know, we thought, you know, why not add a little bit of personality to the tweets, like make it fun and have a little bit of banter as well. Like if someone has a historically poor game, like you just don't want to gloss over that, right? You want to talk about that with your friends. So, you know, why don't we mention it and make it fun? And so that was that was an intentional choice for sure.
And it humanizes things. I think it humanizes what you're doing. I get a kick out of it.
Absolutely.
ESPN stats and info, I've noticed they've tried to do some like tongue-in-cheek ones, and they just miss. It's just like,
I remember you were saying in your last episode, with the little winky face emoji. I remember that you were saying like I think it was a stat with like LeBron and Thaddeus Young or someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I think they've just got someone that doesn't have that. It's just too serious. It's like, hey, we're trying to make a joke here. Everybody laugh. You're like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. But
yeah, absolutely. Like, you said before, you mentioned like, Basketball Reference or ESPN Stats and Info, and we do see them as, I guess, competition, but we do believe that our product is superior because, it's quicker and it's easier, it's more fun. So we don't want to be like them. We want to be different. And one way of being different is to have, fun illustrations and shit talk a little bit and have fun. And, like even Pro said it, like, these like AI talks and, robots and whatever, that like scares the shit out of him. Like it kind of scares the shit out of me. Like some of the stuff that Eli even talked about kind of went over my head when I first started at StatMuse. So, one way to make that more relatable, like you said, humanize it a little bit, is just to have a little bit more fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you guys laugh at some of the stats out there? Surely, like the one I just mentioned with ESPN, but there's been some that are serious, and we joke about it a lot, bro and I. It's like he's the first player to drop 40, have 10 assists, and have diarrhea pregame. That's and some of these people are posting those stats dead serious, like hey, I found a first. Do you guys have a bit of a laugh with all that sometimes, like at laughing at other stats that are posted?
Oh, absolutely, and that gives me a great idea for an April Fool's joke. Maybe next April Fool's we could just exclusively tweet out stats on that day that's like very, very cherry picked. Like LeBron is the first player with without a headband and with a right arm shooting sleeve to drop 30 points in a game on a Tuesday versus the Cavs. That would be pretty fun.
After eating 3 Easter eggs for pregame meal. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. One more from me is, have you received any backlash from athletes about some of your shit posting stats? And have you had anyone ever go at you or reach out to you in DMs and be like, what the fuck?
No. So no one has definitely no one has reached out to us personally, but we did get like a quote tweet. There was a reply to one of our Rudy Gobert tweets, and I think this person was a Jazz fan and wasn't too pleased with I think the tweet was about the Jazz flaming out against the Clippers this past playoffs. And we tweeted something about Rudy Gobert, and this guy sort of replied to the tweet, and I think Rudy Gobert quote tweeted that. So that was the only time when we had an interaction with a player. And we will going forward with Rudy, we probably want to be a little bit more careful and
No, you want to do the opposite, bro, don't you? I mean,
what the fuck?
we're all about rogueness. So if you've only had one quote tweet, you're not doing it right. You got to have a good balance. You want people to kind of love you but hate you at the same time. Then you're doing really good things, bro.
Yeah, you want to block Rudy Gobert by accident and then just find out about it in about 2 months and have him find out about it and get pissed at you.
Yeah, you want to tell them that story? I'm not sure if you heard last pod, but Pros let the world know that he's accidentally blocked JJ Redick, and JJ Redick found out about it because he has a podcast. So he was trying to, have a listen of ours with what we're doing and realized that Pro blocked him, and now Pro, out of pride, even though he accidentally blocked him, he won't unblock him.
Yeah, well, I'm not that fucking bright, but hey guys, who the fuck designed this game on your website with this James Harden beard bullshit? Because I can't get to it. It's the worst thing I've ever seen, and it doesn't work. So I want to know what fucking AI fucking genius from MIT designed this bullshit. That's what I want to know.
I think that just means you're bad at the maze, bro.
No question. Hey, no question about that. No doubt. But I can't get to it, and I want to know who did it.
It wasn't AI, Pro. It was me. So I apologize for making the game a little bit too hard for you, my man.
Yeah, I need the Hooked on Phonics version, just so you know. But I can't get to it. But I was trying for like 20 minutes. It just doesn't move for me. So maybe I got to upgrade my software.
Have you tried going from the MVP trophy and outwards? That could be a trick.
Maybe, but the little head is like on the bottom of the beard. So, anyways, guys, with the picture of the player, the headshot, do you have to get permission individually or no? How does that work?
Yeah, so today it's all just used in content, right? So we don't commercialize any of the illustration, right? So it's just an original work. One thing I'll note is we have, and I'll actually go back to talking about the whether players call us out or ever get mad. So I'll note Kevin has a hard job because I let him, what we try and strike is the balance of like just cover the league and make it entertaining and make stats fun. Because that's like at the end of the day, that's what sports is about. That's what life's about. Like have fun, bring a smile to whatever you're doing, right? So it's like, all right, that's the approach we give Kevin. But on the side, right, like we have a bunch of relationships with different players. Particularly, we have a number of players that are investors in the company, not all of which are public. And some of them, it's like Kevin doesn't know all these relationships or what's behind the scenes. So it's always this funny dance where sometimes he might be going hard at a player for a little bit, and he's like, Eli, what's going on with this player? And that's when I'm like, that's fine, buddy. we'll just keep it going, right? So I think with that in mind, it's hard on the relationship side, for I think Kevin to stay on top of that. But we just our approach, like how do you make talking to the robots fun? How do you make stats fun? That's what we want to prove out. And then when it comes back to the players, what I'll notice on the illustrations, we do plan to commercialize those a little more in the future. That's my little teaser. And that's one of the reasons we have a number of relationships with the players, although not all those are public.
So do you have to get permission to make somebody's picture and put it on your site, or is it because you're not making money off the picture that like the Players Association or anyone else like that wouldn't have an issue with it? That's what I was just sort of.
Yeah, in most cases, it's just fair use, right? Because all we are doing is using it in content today. Anytime we ever plan to commercialize it, we look to either have a relationship with a PA or with the player themselves, right? And so that's kind of the approach. And so for us, it's like you could go use a photo of the game, or you could draw an original illustration. And in our case, they're all original illustrations.
Perfect, got it.
So I want this David Stern story, Kevin. Eli broke that early. We love a good David Stern story. We had one last week, so go for it.
Yeah, so like I said before, originally from New Zealand, got poached by StatMuse, and we applied for a visa. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the types of visas that the US offers, but the most common one for a foreign worker is the H-1B visa, but that comes with a caveat, which is that it's a lottery. So we didn't want to take that chance. We'd rather apply for a harder visa where you have to prove that you're, one of the, that you bring value to the company. I'd put it that.
I think the lawyers try and say you have to prove you're top 50 globally or something like that.
Yeah, I wanted to be. Thanks for putting that out there, Eli. I wanted to be. I didn't want to put too much fire and too much pressure on myself, but I was pretty lucky that I had a pretty successful background in advertising, so I could prove that with my portfolio and the sort of recognition and awards that I've won. So we applied for the O1 visa, and one of the things that you do when you apply for an O1 visa is you have to get these a few letters of recommendation. And Eli hooked me up with a David Stern letter. So he wrote me, or I guess he wrote a letter of recommendation about me to the US immigration office. And that was part of the reason why we got the O1 visa approved pretty quickly. And I got my green card within a year of moving here, which is pretty unheard of.
That's awesome.
So thanks to
that is awesome.
Thanks to the legend. He also gave Eli and I a couple of hats, NBA hats from the infamous Anthony Bennett draft, which is probably now known more as the Giannis draft. So I haven't met David Stern in person before, but he's done a lot for me and my life and my career. That's for sure.
Surely you framed that letter. Surely you framed it, put it on the wall. You got a copy of it?
Oh, I absolutely have stored it in my safe deposit box.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's great.
The background there is David Stern's he was a multiple time investor in the company, an advisor to it, so a close mentor of mine. And the Kevin story was one of many amazing things he did as the magnanimous human being he is.
Yeah, it was awesome. And that visa you refer to, we were on a similar one. NBA players they actually had the wording, a person of extraordinary ability. I think is the exact wording they use. So yeah, for those listening out there, when you go to get a visa in the US, there's the lottery, and then there's the extraordinary ability. So an NBA player, obviously a top 300-400 in the world in what you're doing. So that's extraordinary ability. But the way they worded it, when I read it, I was like, holy shit, extraordinary ability. That's pretty cool. But that's how you get in. I guess we'll finish. Pro, these guys actually have questions for us. This is the first guest probably ever. So we'll get to those in a second. But I guess there was a question in, do you make any money out of the counts, or is it truly a passion project? I think that's been pretty well answered. I think it seems like it's a mix of both. You guys are very passionate and making money, which is great. But what's the goal? What's the goal for you guys long term? Where's StatMuse in 10, 15 years for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'll lead with it. Kevin can share his vision. For me, it's all about this. How do you build this kind of next generation of like a search engine that's as much more like search meets content, so that as fans or as investors or fantasy players, whatever you are, that you can drive that experience. So for us, it's like, how do you just have the best kind of data media portal, so that in the past you used to go to Google to then search something and end up on Wikipedia or ESPN. Now, how can you just have like one website that you come to for sports, for finance, for Bitcoin, and it kind of has everything you want right in front, personalized. But then if you have a question, you can ask it and instantly answer it. And then that's kind of the dream. And then for me, it's people like Kevin help make that very cool.
So that's a great segue to my answer. So my main job at StatMuse is to make everything look cool, I guess. So I try to make the scary shit, like the boring shit, like stats, fun and accessible and entertaining. So hopefully in 5 years, 10 years time, we'd be known as that, like a stat company, a search company that is reputable, accurate, that deals with accurate information, but does it in the most fun way possible.
Yeah, it makes sense. We'll be following it, as will everyone else. So, Pro, get some popcorn. We have some useful or useless stats to get through from the two gurus themselves. Let's do it.
All right. So I've got a few stats here. I'll start with the first one. So first stat, Andrew Bogut is one of 13 foreign players drafted first overall in the NBA. Five of those 13 players are champions. Bogues, Hakeem, Tim Duncan. So Tim Duncan was born in the Virgin Islands, and apparently they're considered international because they're not part of the 50 states. Kyrie Irving and Michael Thompson, who is Clay's dad. So 5 of the 13 champions. Useful or useless?
What you got, Pro?
I got useless. I mean, it's awesome. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's just 13 players that are foreign, 5 were one. 13 foreign that 5 won a championship. 13 number 1 picks? Did you say that are foreign?
Yeah, 13 foreign number 1 picks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just coincidental, right?
Yeah, I would agree. It's coincidental, and it had nothing. My chip had nothing to do with Steph or Clay. It was just all me. So I'm gonna that one might be. I'd even knock myself out on useless. That one. What else you got?
Second stat. So out of the 13 foreign first overall picks, 3 of them are from Australia. Bogut, Kyrie, and Ben Simmons. Here's the crazy thing. All 3 of them were born in the same city, Melbourne. In fact, since 1981, so that's around about when the NBA started the 3-point line, Melbourne has produced more number 1 overall picks in the NBA than any other city in the world. Is that useful or useless?
I think it's useful, that one is, because Melbourne is one of the meccas in Australia for Australian basketball talent that not only performs here in Australia, but overseas. I mean, Kyrie, we can't really claim too much of his development because he left at an early age, but we'll take it. But even myself and Ben, and then you look at most of the other players playing, had something to do with Melbourne basketball. So I'm going useful on that one, bro.
Yeah, it is coincidental in a sense just because they're born the same, but it is a pretty cool stat that, it leads to number 1 picks in cities across the world. So I'll say it's useful.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy if you think about it,
Take that, Chicago.
Yeah, take that, LA.
Yeah, exactly. Fun fact, Chicago is actually Chicago's number 2 on that list.
That's what I figured because I know Chicago produces a lot of talent in the NBA.
Take that, New York City, New Jack City, my ass.
All right, third stat. Andrew Bogut had his breakout season in 2009-10 before your injury, Bogues.
Yep.
And that was your 5th year. I don't know if you remember, but you averaged 15.9 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks. And you were voted 3rd team All-NBA. Not all defense, All-NBA. And this is how good that season was and how underrated it was. Since that season, so 2010, only 2 players have averaged 15 and 10 and 2.5 blocks in a season. Dwight Howard, who's an All-NBA player, and Anthony Davis, who's an All-NBA player. Useful or useless, pro?
You fucking lost me about 3 paragraphs ago, fellas, but Bogues, what do you got? I'm passing it on to my fucking lifeline here. What do you got?
Take some Adderall, pro. Come on, we're only 37 minutes in. It's Steam Company for me. I didn't know that with the 2. I'm assuming the 2.5 blocks really got me over the line because Rudy would be up there somewhere, but he probably is not averaging close to 16 a game or 15.9. So pat myself on the back for the All NBA 3rd team. I'm going to say useful, pro.
Yeah, fuck it, useful. I'll just go with that. Let's copy over your shoulder. We got that shit.
Next.
All right, this is the last one. And I'm pretty sure this is 100% useless. So since 2005, and that was Bogut's draft year, 24% of the first overall picks have a variation of the name Andre as their first name. So Andrew Bogut, Andrea Bargnani, Andrew Wiggins, DeAndre Ayton. That's useless, right? That was just a fun last one.
It's useless, but it's just a random one for you to find, man. Kudos. That's what I'm saying. Like some of this stuff, you're like, fuck. Like that one was a self-research, obviously. There's no way you're putting that shit into AI. But
yeah, that was a self-research for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it's useless, but I think it's an impressive find, pro.
Yeah, so like when you guys have your terror robot that's gonna come get us at some point, is it gonna have like Arnold Schwarzenegger's body with like Steven Jackson's face on it? Like, how is your robot going to look when it tries to take over the world? I'm just curious.
An elephant, robot elephant, cyborg elephant.
Oh, okay, that's good. At least it's shaped like me. I appreciate that. It is a pretty cool site. Like one of the better things that I did besides the shot chart stuff that I thought you guys did a good job is like if I wanted to say like Bogues, what was bad example, but if you played for another team for multiple years, so say like I don't know, what was Vlade Divac's stats just on Charlotte? And I can look that up and it'll give me his career stat line for just that team. Like there's just cool things you could just type in when you're trying to do research for players and stuff. And I just thought it was a pretty entertaining site to go on.
Yeah, well, we highly recommend it. We reference you boys a lot before we let you go. Is there anything you want to promote? Give us your handles on all the social media. And if there's anything else you want to tell our listeners, now is the time.
I'll leave that to you, Eli.
All right. So the account is at StatMuse on Twitter. Definitely follow it. One of the best sports accounts there is. Every once in a while we drop some finance dimes on you guys. And then the 2 things I'd promote, if you're into sports, we're going to have really robust sports betting features. Today you can ask stuff about like the odds and the spread and the money line, but we're going to add a lot more, including a bunch of historical data. So that'll be pretty cool. Something we're pretty pumped about, to kind of expand our robot's brain of what you can answer it or what you can ask it. And then on the finance side, we just launched a public beta of StatMuse Money, which is, search for financial information. So stock prices, currency pairs, Bitcoin returns, and more. Super powerful, a product I'm super excited about. It has kind of the same, I think, fun factor that you find with sports. Even though you're searching, financial information, Kevin and Michael on our team definitely make sure it's cool. So it's a lot of fun, and check it out. And search StatMuse to save time.
Yeah, give them a follow. Give us a follow at Bogues, obviously. But yeah, I found this conversation really interesting because most people see these stats, but I was always intrigued about, and Pro and I have talked about it numerous times, about like who's logging this and who's following this and the time put into it. So it's good you guys have broke it down for our listeners to know, I guess, the faces and the people and the humans behind everything that's being put out, because sometimes, like we said earlier, it can just get lost in that tech bubble of not knowing that human element of it. So we appreciate your time, Eli and Kevin from StatMuse. Thank you very much, and we wish you all the best with StatMuse in the future.
Thanks, man. Thanks, boys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks. We really appreciate it, and have a great weekend, everyone.